Today, we are jumping into a really fascinating intellectual puzzle from the ancient Talmud. It's a kind of logical deep dive that starts with a super specific, kind of strange problem, but it ends with a surprisingly elegant and universal principle. Let's get into it. So here's the setup. Picture the sacred courtyard of the ancient temple in Jerusalem. An animal is brought for an offering, but it's literally straddling the boundary line. Its body is inside the holy space, but its feet are hanging out. So can the ritual even happen? Is this offering valid? Right off the bat, this is the question that kicks off this whole incredible chain of reasoning.
So the rabbi's first instinct, and this is presented by Rabbi Elazar, is to try and find a practical workaround. They're basically asking, how can we legally and physically solve this boundary problem? And their first idea seems, well, pretty straightforward.
The initial thought is, hey, let's just deal with the part that's causing the problem. So the theory goes like this. First, you sever the legs that are outside the courtyard. Then you perform the slaughter on the body, which is now fully inside. Since all the blood you collect is from the part of the animal inside the sacred space, the offering should be totally valid. Simple, right? Well, not so fast. An immediate objection comes up. See, sacrificial animals have to be perfect, completely without any physical blemishes. So if you chop off its legs before the ritual slaughter, haven't you just created a massive blemish? And wouldn't that invalidate the entire offering right from the start? It's a fantastic point, and it stops that first theory in its tracks. Okay, so back to the drawing board. What if we just switch the order of operations? The revised theory suggests slaughtering the entire animal first while it's still whole and unblemished. Then, after the slaughter, but before you collect the blood, you sever the legs that are outside. This seems to solve the blemish problem because the animal was totally whole at the moment of slaughter. But here comes another brilliant complication, this time from Rabbi Zera. He points to this crucial rule from a verse in Leviticus, and it says it's not enough for the animal to be unblemished at slaughter. It has to also be unblemished at the very moment the sacred blood is collected. So if you slaughter it and then cut off its legs, it's now a blemished animal at the exact moment you're trying to do the holy part. The problem is right back on the table. This really shows you the incredible level of precision they're working with. The solution they finally land on is so subtle, you don't sever the entire leg. No, instead, you cut the flesh until you hit the bone, but you leave the bone itself intact. Legally, this has the effect of isolating the blood flow without actually creating a disqualifying blemish. It's a perfect little piece of legal engineering. So, great, we have a solution for the first problem. But, as you see all the time in Talmudic debate, solving one puzzle just reveals a much deeper one hiding underneath. And now the questions are about to get a whole lot more complicated. The whole discussion now pivots. The rabbis start to wonder, what is the core disqualifying element here? I mean, if a part of the offering is outside the boundary, is it the blood in that part that's the real problem? Or maybe it's the fat, or the meat itself. This forces them to define the rules of sanctity and boundaries way more carefully. And it turns out there isn't just one single set of rules for all offerings. There are actually two main categories. You have most sacred offerings, which are incredibly strict. Everything has to happen in a very specific part of the courtyard. And then you have offerings of lesser sanctity, which are a bit more flexible. For our puzzle, the key difference is what happens when part of the animal leaves the sacred space. To really illustrate this, the Talmud uses this incredibly vivid example. Imagine after the animal is slaughtered, its body convulses. For one of those most sacred offerings, if it convulses out of its special northern area, but it stays within the main courtyard and comes back, it's actually still fine. But for an offering of lesser sanctity, if it convulses and leaves the main courtyard entirely, even for a second, it is immediately disqualified. Game over. This shows you just how absolute that outer boundary is for the second category. This brings us to this fantastic, rapid-fire dialogue between a scholar named Shmuel and his father. His father basically puts him through this gauntlet of what-if scenarios, just stress-testing every possible interpretation of these rules about location and sanctity. All right, first up, a real mind-bender. What if the animal isn't touching the ground at all? It's just suspended in the air, but it's within the airspace of the courtyard. Is a slaughter done this way valid? Shmuel says, yep, valid. The airspace should count. But his father immediately corrects him. Mistaken. The law is very specific that the slaughter has to take place on the ground, right there near the altar. The physical spot on the ground is what really matters here. Okay, next hypothetical. What if we flip it? The animal is on the ground in exactly the right spot, but now the priest who's performing the slaughter is the one suspended in the air above it. What do you do now?
Shmuel, probably thinking he learned from the last round, says invalid. But again, his father says mistaken. The law cares about the location of the act of slaughter itself, not the location of the person doing it. As long as the animal is slaughtered on the ground, it doesn't matter where the priest is standing or floating.
Okay, one final test. Let's forget the slaughter for a minute. What if the priest is suspended in the air while he's performing a different part of the service, like collecting the sacred blood in a vessel? Shmuel guesses this one is probably valid, but he's mistaken one last time. It's later that the sage Rava clarifies everything and just synthesizes it into these core principles. For the slaughter, yeah, only the location of the act matters. But, and this is key, for other parts of the service, like collecting the blood, there's an extra requirement. It has to be performed in a normal and respectful manner. And being suspended in the air, that is definitely not a normal manner of ministration. So this entire intricate discussion about animals and boundaries and suspended priests, it's all been building towards one final, really profound connection. The logic that they developed for the animal offering is about to be applied to a completely new subject. And here it is, the final puzzle, posed by Rabbi Yirmiyahu. What if a priest is performing a sacred service? His body is fully inside the courtyard, but his long hair is hanging over the boundary line outside the sacred space. Is his service valid? I mean, this sounds incredibly familiar, doesn't it? The answer is found by drawing this direct parallel between two verses in the Bible. For the animal offering, the verse says to bring them, plural, implying the entire animal to the Lord. And for the priests, a different verse says when they, also plural, implying the entire person, go into the tent of meeting. The grammatical structure is identical. It's a perfect match. And just like that, the rabbis derive this single, consistent principle that governs everything. Just as the sacrificial animal has to be entirely within the courtyard, the priest, too, must be entirely within the sacred space for his service to be valid. That means his feet, his body, and yes, even his hair. It's just this beautiful moment of unifying logic. You know, what started as a weird question about an animal's feet ends with this powerful principle about wholeness and sanctity. And this isn't just about ancient rituals. It's a masterclass in a specific way of thinking, of testing principles against every possible edge case and searching for unifying rules. And it kind of leaves us with a question, doesn't it? How can applying this same kind of rigorous, boundary-obsessed logic change the way we define and solve complex problems in our own world?